Hello, welcome to Unit 7, Video 3. Today we're going to look at dividing polynomials using long division. Your learning target is that you can divide a polynomial by a polynomial of equal or lower degree using long division. So long division is something you guys have used since you were third or fourth grade, maybe even before that. So we're going to do that, but now it's going to be with polynomials instead of numbers. So we have an example. Ariana needed 140x squared plus 16x square inches of paper to make a book jacket 10 inches tall. In figuring the area she needed, she allowed for a front and back flap. If the spine of the book jacket is 2x inches and the front of the back book of the jacket are 6x inches, how wide are the front and back flaps? Okay, so they labeled this on here. So the 2x is here, and the front and the back are 6x. Okay, so right now I know that this is, all the way over to here. 6x plus 2x plus 6x, so that's 12 plus 2 is 14x. And I know that it's 10 inches tall, and it says I need this many square inches. So this is my area of the paper. And I'm trying to figure out what these flaps here are. I have two flaps, so I need to figure out how wide they are. So what I'm going to do is right now I have my area, and it's talking about a rectangle, so we know area is equal to length times width. And what we're going to do is we're going to see how much area I have left for those flaps. Okay, so in this case, I know for sure my width. This is my width. But I do not know my complete length. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to solve this for L. So the way I would figure out L is I would divide both sides by W. So my length is equal to my area over my width. So right now, to figure out my length, I would have my area divided by my width, which is 10x. Okay. This is a polynomial, and it's being divided by a monomial. There's only one. And so when that's the case, you can divide each part by it. So I would have L is equal to 140x squared divided by 10x plus 60x divided by 10x. When I simplify this, I would have 140 divided by 10, which gives us 14. X squared over x. This is really x the first. Remember, bring the smaller to the larger. 2 minus 1 is 1, so I just have x. Plus 60 divided by 10 is 6, and my x's will cancel. So they're saying the length is 14x plus 6. Right now we know our length is 14x plus 2 flaps. Plus 2 flaps. Well, if you notice, they both have the 14x, so that means that my 2 flaps has to equal 6. So that means that if I divide both sides by 2, each flap has to equal 3, and we are talking about in inches. So the flaps are 3 inches. Okay. So this is a way of dividing a polynomial by a monomial, and that's what we're going to be doing for the first part of our notes today. So to divide a polynomial by a monomial, you divide each term in the polynomial by the monomial. As you go through today's homework or the practice sheet, just make sure that you are noticing what's going on. This one is a polynomial being divided by a monomial. There's only one. Okay, so when there is only one, you can just divide each piece. So we're going to have 4x to the third divided by 4x plus 8x over 4x minus 12x squared over 4x. Then I would simplify. 4's will cancel. X to the third divided by x. 3 minus 1 gives me x squared. 8 divided by 4 is 2. My x's will cancel. Minus 12 divided by 4. That gives me 3. 2 minus 1 will just leave us with x. The only number that's where you would put highest exponent to lowest. So it'd be minus 3x plus 2. Okay, moving on to example 2. On example 2, I notice it's a polynomial divided by a monomial. There's only one in the denominator. So I take each part in my numerator and divide it by that. So I would have 16a to the 5th, b to the 3rd, divided by 8a to the 4th, b to the 3rd, plus 12a to the 3rd, b to the 4th, over 8a to the 4th, b to the 3rd, minus 20ab to the 5th, over 8a to the 4th, b to the 3rd. And then we just need to simplify. 16 divided by 8 will give us 2. A to the 5th over a to the 4th, so I do 5 minus 4, so I have just a to the 1st, or a. And then my b to the 3rds will cancel. Plus, okay, these are not evenly divisible, but they're both divisible by 4. So this gives me 3 over 4. So I have 3 over 4. Always bring the smaller to the larger, so my larger's in the denominator. So it's 4 minus 3, so it's a to the 1st. And then my b's, smaller to the larger, so it's b to the 1st as well. 4 minus 3 gives me 1. Minus, now I look here, not evenly divisible, so what are they both divisible by? Both divisible by 4, so this gives us 5 over 2. My a, it's a to the 1st and a to the 4th. Bring the smaller to the larger and subtract, so 4 minus 1 is 3. And my b's bring my smaller to my larger, so it's b to the 2nd. I'm just going to write this because we typically don't write to the 1st power, so it's going to be 2a plus 3b over 4a minus 5b squared over 2a to the 3rd. Okay, and that is our answer for number 2. Number 3, I go ahead and look at this one. Once again, it's a polynomial being divided by one thing, monomial. So I know I can just break it up and divide each piece. So we have 9x squared y to the 3rd over 3xy squared minus 15xy squared over 3xy squared plus 12xy to the 3rd over 3xy squared. And then I start simplifying. 9 divided by 3, that works. I get 3. I have x to the 1st and x squared, so bringing the smaller to the larger, I would have 2 minus 1, so I just have x. Same thing with my y's. 3 minus 2 will just give me y. Minus 15 divided by 3, that's going to give us 5. My x's will cancel. My y's will cancel because they're exactly the same. Plus 12 divided by 3 is 4. The x's will cancel here. And bring the smaller to the larger. 3 minus 2 is 1. Okay. And then typically you write the values with the variables first. So I'm just going to reorganize this one. And there is our answer for number 3. Okay. So this was polynomial by a monomial. Only one thing. This piece right here. Okay. Mono means one, so there's only one thing. Now we're going to move from a monomial to a binomial. Okay, so divide a polynomial by a monomial. In order to do that, you need to use long division or synthetic division. Today, we are going to be looking at long division. And just to remind you, you have done long division in the past. If I told you to take 582 divided by 4 without a calculator, you'd probably use long division today. So remember, that's your 582. And you put the 4 on the outside. Okay, so I would say, how many times does 4 fit into 5? Well, once. And then I would have 1 times 4, which is 4. And then I would subtract. Remember how we always subtract, so this brings 1, then you bring down the 8. So now I say, how many times does 4 fit into 18? Well, 4 times. 4 times 4 is 16. Remember how we always subtract. Gives us 2. We bring down this 2, so we have 22. Now I would say, how many times does 4 fit into 22? Well, it fits in 5 times. 5 times 4 is 20. Subtract 2. Okay, what does that 2 mean? Well, it's our remainder of 2. Or another way you could write it is it's 145 and 2 over what we divided by, 4. 2 over 4 reduces to 1/2, so it's really 145.5. So that's what we're going to be doing today, but this time with polynomials being divided by a binomial. Notice how there's 2 of them? So you need to make sure that whenever it's a binomial, you have to do long division or synthetic. Can't just divide each piece like we did on the last one. So let's set this up. We have 2x minus 3, and we have, this is my polynomial being divided. So we have 2x to the third plus 5x squared minus 2x minus 15. All right, and we start out. We say, you always look at the value in front here. You say 2x times what gives you 2x to the third? Well, 2 times 1, so we're good there. And then x times what gives you x to the third? X to the second. Okay, so I always try and line it up. Notice how here's my x to the second, so up here I'd have my x to the seconds as well. So I have x squared times 2x to the x squared times 2x. Well, this is really 1, so we'd have 2. X times x to the second is x to the third. And then you have to also multiply the negative 3 here. So negative 3 times x squared is negative 3x squared. Now remember, when we did it the old school way, you always subtract. So we need to do that. Just be careful. It's going to change the signs of every piece. So this will cancel, and then I have 5x squared plus 3x squared, which gives you 8x squared. And just like on the old school, I go ahead and bring down negative 2. Now it's the same process. 2x times what gives you 8x squared? Well, first of all, it's going to be positive. 2 times 4 gives you 8. X times what gives you x squared? X times x. Now we go ahead, and I would say 4x times 2x is 8x squared. And then it's going to be minus because negative times positive. 4 times 3 is 12, and I would have that x still. Remember, we always subtract, so I'm changing my signs. So these cancel. Negative 2x plus 12x is 10x. I go ahead and bring down this negative 15. And I repeat the process one more time. So I say, what multiplies to 10x? 2x times what gives you 10x? Well, 5, so let's try it. So this gives me 10x. Negative 3 times 5 gives you negative 15. And then remember, we always change our signs. So this is negative, this is positive. Cancels and cancels, so I'm left with 0, so there is no remainder. Okay, so in this case, I would have, my final answer is what's left here. So when I divided, I got x squared plus 4x plus 5. So there is my answer when I divide those polynomials. Okay. Let's go ahead and try another example. Now example 5. We have 2x to the third plus 6x plus 152. One thing I would notice is that there is no there's no x squared term. So whenever there's not, you need to put a placeholder in. So it's like 0x squared. And we're dividing. So let's go ahead and start our process. We have x plus 4. And here we would have 2x to the third plus 0x squared plus 6x plus 152. All right. Now I say, x times what gives you 2x to the third? Well, this is really 1, so 1 times 2. And then x times what gives you x to the third? X squared. Remember, when you multiply, they have to add to that value. Then we go ahead, we take 2x squared times x. That gives me 2x to the third. 2x squared times 4 gives me 8x squared. Go ahead. Remember, we always subtract. So subtract, subtract. This cancels. 0 minus 8x squared is negative 8x squared. Bring this down, so plus 6x. Then we repeat the process. X times what gives you negative 8x squared? No, it's going to be negative 8. And x times what gives you x squared? X times x. So negative 8x times x is negative 8x squared. Negative 8x times 4 gives me negative 32x. Then remember, we always change our signs, so because we multiply by a negative or we subtract them. These will cancel. This will give me 38x. Bring down 152. Now I have x times what gives you 38x? Well, x times 38, so plus 38. So this gives me 38x. 38 times 4 gives me 152. Then we go ahead, remember we always subtract. These will cancel, and I'm left with 0, so there is no remainder. So my answer for this one is 2x squared minus 8x plus 38. Okay, that is example 5. I would recommend if you wanted to try example 6 on your own, you could. I will say there is a remainder with example 6, so just be careful on that one. But you could try 6 on your own if you wanted to pause it. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and do example 6 now. So I set it up. We have 3x plus 1, and then underneath we have 6x to the third plus 5x squared minus 2x plus 1. No values were missing, so that's good. Now I just continue on. 3x times what gives you 6x to the third? Well, 3 times 2 gives me 6. X times x squared gives you x to the third. So this times this gives me 6x to the third. 1 times 2x squared is 2x squared. Change the signs. This gives me 3x squared. Bring this down, negative 2x. Now I would say 3x times what gives you 3x squared? Well, 3 times 1 gives me 3, so this one I just have to add an x. So if I do that, I have 3x squared. X times 1 is x, so plus x. Remember, we always subtract. Those will cancel. Negative 2x minus x gives you negative 3x. Bring down the 1, so plus 1. Then I say 3x times what gives you negative 3x? Negative 1, so negative 3x minus 1. Then we go ahead and we change the signs, so be careful here because this is going to make it positive, positive. So this cancels, but 1 plus 1 is 2, which is our remainder. So if we go back to our old school problem, our remainder we took and put it over what we were dividing by. So it was 2 over 4. Same thing here. We just go ahead and say plus 2 over 3x plus 1. So our final answer for number 6 is 2x squared plus x minus 1 plus 2 over 3x plus 1. That's how you write your remainder for long division. Okay, example 7. This one's a little bit longer. Look at, we got an x to the 4th. There is no x to the third, so we have to make sure we add a 0x to the third. X squared, x, okay, then everything else is good, so let's set it up. And start dividing. You have to be careful when you're doing these. You got to write nice and neat. Make sure you don't make any silly mistakes. It's easy to find your mistake if you write nice and neat and you have it organized. So make sure you keep that in mind as you go through these. All right, 2x times what gives me 4x to the 4th? Well, 2 times 2 gives me 4. X times x to the 3rd gives me x to the 4th. So now I would have 4x to the 4th minus 6x to the 3rd. Change the signs. This gives me 6x to the 3rd. Bring this down. Okay, now 2x times what gives you 6x to the third? Well, 2 times 3 gives me 6, and then times x squared. So this gives me 6x to the third. 3x squared times negative 3 gives me negative 9x to the second. And like I said before, you got to be very careful. Look it. I missed my 2, so make sure you change that. Then we go ahead and we are going to subtract. So this is negative, this is positive, that cancels. Negative 17x squared plus 9x squared is a negative 8x squared. Bring down the 14x. Now I continue. Well, 2x times what gives you negative 8x squared? Well, 2 times negative 4, and then x times x. So negative 4x times 2x gives you negative 8x squared. Negative 4x times negative 3 is going to give you positive 12x. Then we got to change your signs. This will cancel. 14x minus 12x gives me 2x. Bring down that negative 3. Now I say 2x times what gives you 2x? Well, 1 times 1. So this gives me 2x. Negative 3 times 1 gives you negative 3. We change our signs one last time. This cancels, and this one it does, so it all cancels. So we're good. So there's no remainder here, so here's my answer. So just to write it out, my final answer is 2x to the third plus 3x squared minus 4x plus 1. Okay. I will say that there is one on your homework that you want to be careful for. Just for instance, if there is 2x to the third plus 6x plus 152 divided by, let's say, x to the second minus 2, notice here, who am I missing? I'm missing a 0x. So you need to write it like this. Then divided by, oh, I'm missing something here. This one's missing an x to the second, so 0x squared. And then the process is exactly the same. It's just that if this happens by what you're dividing by, make sure you add this in there. Otherwise, everything else will be the same. If you have questions on that, you can come and ask. Okay, we have one problem left, a little bit of a word problem, number 8. The area of a rectangle, okay, is 3x squared minus 19x plus 20 square feet. The length of the rectangle is 3x minus 4. It says, what is the width of the rectangle? So a rectangle is length times width. I know my length and I know my area. I'm trying to find my width. So I would divide both sides by my length. So my width will equal my area divided by length. So let's go ahead and do that. My area is 3x squared minus 19x plus 20, all over my length. Okay, so I'm going to divide these two. It says to divide, so we're going to divide. Notice polynomial by binomial, so long division. So we have 3x minus 4. And then I have 3x squared minus 19x plus 20. 3x times what gives me 3x squared? 3x times x. So that gives you 3x squared minus 4x. Remember, we always subtract. Change the signs. So this one gives you negative 15x plus 20. Same thing, 3x times what gives you negative 15x times negative 5. So that gives me negative 15x. Negative 5 times negative 4 is 20. Remember, we always subtract. So change your signs. 0. So this means that my width is equal to x minus 5. That is my width. I do want to point something out, though. Okay, let's just write this down. It's x minus 5. Is there another way I could have solved this problem? Did I have to do long division? We have solved problems like this before. What you would have needed to do was factor the numerator. So if I factor my numerator, if I look at what my denominator is, it's probably giving me a pretty good hint. But to factor this, I would have to do guess and check. So if I try 3x and x, and then I say, what has to multiply to 20? Well, I'm going to try 4 and 5. And then you need to get your inside. So this is 4x, and this is 15x. Using 15x and 4x, could I get to negative 19? Yes, if they were both negative. So filling that in the numerator, I would notice those are exactly the same. So look what I'm left with, which is my width. So there's more than one way to do this problem. Since we're in long division, you can use long division if you like to factor and you want to solve it that way. That is also perfectly okay with me. If you have any questions on Unit 7 Video 3 or long division, please come and ask. Otherwise, have a great day, and I'll talk to you later.